A very good evening. It's 8th of March and the world is celebrating its 46th International Women's Day, as UN actually first time identified in 1975 this particular day. My name is Prachi Singh and I would be your host and moderator for this session, where today we celebrate the women in leadership with emphasis on women leading in non-conventional sectors such as agriculture and associated domains. Let's kickstart this session with a small video, which actually shall set the context up front.
शुरू कर। और कितनी देर भैया?
आप 5 मिनट।
5 मिनट। अगले 5 मिनट में कोई आया नहीं तो लाइसेंस नहीं मिलेगा, बाद में बनवा लेना। अरे अरे अरे, साइकिल चला रहा था क्या? ट्रैक्टर चलाना मजाक नहीं होता है, जिम्मेदारी का काम होता है ट्रैक्टर चलाना, समझे?
हाँ सर, लेकिन मेरे...
चलो चलो नेक्स्ट।
साहब, शक्ति।
तुम शक्ति?
हाँ शक्ति
ट्रैक्टर का ड्राइविंग टेस्ट देना है?
जी।
देखो यहाँ पे मुझे बहुत साल हो गए, लेकिन आज तक किसी लड़की को मैंने ट्रैक्टर का ड्राइविंग टेस्ट देते हुए नहीं देखा है। क्यों? हाँ,
आज से देखेंगे सर। चले?
सुनो, ये आसान नहीं होगा।
सर, आसान होता तो हर कोई किसान होता, है ना?
So you see, agriculture as a sector has so many stereotypes around it, like the one we saw in this video. Facts actually state women play a significant and crucial role in agriculture development and allied fields. The nature and extent of women's involvement in agriculture varies greatly region to region, but the census in 2011 quoted out of total female main workers, 55% were agricultural laborers and 24% were cultivators. Yet, this is one sector which is highly stereotyped to be led by men. On that note, allow me to introduce to you all the ladies on the panel today from this very industry and associated. Our panelists today, guys, are joining us from two corners of the world, one where the sun's actually setting and the other where it's rising right now. We have with us, first of all, Dia Martin, who joins us from the US today. Dia works with DFC as a managing director. INI has received guarantee-based financing from DFC. DFC has been instrumental in assisting INI with implementation of world-class governance and social impact frameworks. Dia at DFC and beyond has been the catalyst for innovation with experience creating new programs and structuring funds across multiple sectors, including healthcare and agriculture. A very, very warm welcome to you, Dia, and a good morning once again. Second on our panel today is Dara Mehta. She joins us today from SIDBI as well as Samruddhi Fund. Dara is actually the director on the board of INI Farms. She works with SIDBI and was one of the core team members who set up the Samruddhi Fund in 2013. She plays an active role representing SVCL on the boards of several portfolio companies across diverse sectors as a director and observer. Welcome, Dhara.
Thank you.
Moving on to the third panelist today, we have Vaidhehi Ravindran. She's an observer on the board of INI Farms and is involved in providing strategic and operational guidance to us. Vaidhehi is part of the Light Truck India team and also serves on the boards of Waycool, Dunzo, Porter, Gogo, EM3, and Leaf. Vaidhehi was one of the first few women involved in project commissioning and refinery operations at Indian Oil Corporation. Welcome, Vaidhehi. Welcome to the panel today. Our next panelist is Divya Gupta, who's the most recent addition to the INI board as a representative of Avishkar Capital, where she works as an associate director and has led multiple investments and exits in many segments of business in different industries. Welcome, Divya. Last but not the least, on the panel today, we have Purnima Khandelwal. Purnima co-founded INI Farms in 2009 and is the first woman CEO of one of the largest fresh fruit companies from India. Purnima has been the driving force behind creating India's first safe fruit brand, Kimai. She has, to her credit, successfully working in two of the most traditional and non-conventional industries for women, which is heavy metal and agriculture. Welcome, Purnima. Once again, a very, very warm welcome to the panel as we move on to the discussion now. Vaidhehi, let me start with you. Talking about social stereotypes that we've just did, what according to you would be two things from your own journey and experience that have impacted your career, or have you seen anything like that in your other portfolio companies?
So again, I think stereotypes are very serious, and I think in operationally intensive industries, right? Services is little less because somehow it's okay, accepted for a woman, and this was not true 10 years back, but now it's a little bit more acceptable from a sit in front of a desk job kind of perspective. And the minute you think about a work which involves either travel to not so good conditions, or if it involves physical operations of any sort, even if it is supervisory or any of that sort, immediately the stereotype kicks in, because there is an obvious understanding that women can't do, or rather if women do it, then there has to be men to support the women to do it, right? And obviously I've faced this personally because I used to work in refinery operations, right? There's not a lot of women around there. And in fact, I had to put up a fight and say, I want to do this. So I think stereotypes, the thing to acknowledge is that stereotype exists. But I also think the only way to get over a lot of these kind of stereotypes is very actively saying, how do we fight them? And how do we think beyond stereotypes, right? Again, clearly, as we work through as we've seen in the INI, in some ways, the pack house, etc., right? Again, there's a lot of women in the operations piece, right? There's not actually, it's physical work. And so clearly there's all of that. The second piece I would actually say where stereotype, and to me that matters most, right? Is also when it comes to managerial and leadership positions. And a lot of it comes because, some of it is because, well, people think women can't do. Weirdly, the one that puts, and we don't talk about this, right? And I'm just saying it because we should talk about it, is when you put a woman at the top, will men work for her? People don't think about women in managerial, and again, this is not this exists in every place, right? Can we go hire 10 high functioning men under her? And we don't ask this question, and we don't state it in as many words, because the minute we state it, we know it's wrong, right? The problem here is this is all like subconscious conditioning. So I think we have to ask ourselves about what is the conditioning that's driving the stereotype, and just go after it. And I think the other thing that is we've realized, again, in especially in our agri companies, right, is that somehow the money, women don't control money, right? At least at that level, as we deal, again, how many women farmers do we deal with, right? Is it because of well, yes, they can't potentially do physical labor type of question, or is it because they are not the ones that are controlling? Because physical labor is really not at the top of value creation, right? At this point in time, we are in a world where mechanization takes care of everything. So it's really not about physical labor. It is about giving someone supervisory and managerial control or financial control. And men have problem, and you have to call them on it, right? And this is not just men, by the way, the society. It's actually the other women just as problematic, weirdly. So I think the question is to say, is this about control, or is this actually about, can you travel by yourself, or can you do this? I was once working in a plant at like 11 o'clock with a bunch of guys who were like blue collar workers working through like literally fixing some screws in like a nut bolt, right? So this is not and there's a supervisor, so there's a manager who came and said, are you sure you're good, okay being alone? I said, I'm okay being alone, but if you're so worried, don't tell me to go, you stand next to me, and I'm okay with that, and don't make me feel bad for it. The other point is, don't, you are standing here for your own peace of mind, I didn't ask for you. So I think, again, there's obviously safety to be considered, etc. So the first question to ask ourselves is, are we providing a safe environment? Is this because some things are just not tolerated, right? The good thing is, I think a lot of what has happened in society at large is given way to that being right. And again, the question is, does even that right is only potentially present in privileged societies. So if you go down lower in the circles of privilege, you're probably not going to see that level of social enlightenment that's taking place there. So how do we bring that safe atmosphere? And this is again to companies like INI, etc. How do you bring that safe environment for women to come up and say how you do it? And two is, how do you think about it from the perspective of, is this because it's a labor intensive thing, or is it because you don't want to give control? So I think that's the question to ask ourselves. And the only way to do this is to consciously fight and consciously set parameters to make sure that there is a bit of, and the other thing to understand is, you get one woman, like several will come. So a lot of this is about finding the right community of people. And I had attended the INI 10-year event, right? There's enough of those. So it's more about finding those communities of women, because they do come in group, because that automatically provides for a safe environment. So I think those are all points that I would, again, it's not some super cohesive formula. I think it's you just have to look at what's going on and work through it, and never, and to any women out there, never accept that you can't do anything. That's quite literally bullshit. And don't ever tell a woman she can't do something. So as long as we forget everything else and just follow these basic rules, I think we'll be fine.
That's actually the right mantra, where they're saying, just now, let's not just say that you can do it. That's for every woman out there. Moving on then to the next question, Dia, if I can bring it to you. You're leading a large impact fund and would be interacting with women across the world. What do you think about women leadership, and do you perceive any difference across different geographies and cultures?
So first, thank you for the question. And again, thank you for inviting me to participate in this panel. I've seen that there are cultural nuances and differences as I look at businesses across the globe. That is true. But I see there are certain traits in strong women leaders that transcend culture, that transcend country and region. And I just wanted to just touch on those, because I think they're really important. And it kind of mirrors on some of the comments that the last panelist just made. First, what I've seen to be clear is, and the women leaders that have been the most successful that we've invested in, is this passion for change and the willingness and the ability to see the world as different than what some might perceive as the status quo. So I think that's really important as a woman and as a leader, to have this passion for change and to be willing to take that step and make a difference. And that really feeds into one's ability and willingness to take risk. I think we take risk every day, and women and men have to take a risk to make sure that it's a better and more equitable and equal world. I've also seen that the most successful women that we've worked with have a strong level of confidence and ability to take the opportunity to be first, to make the changes or be the game changer. And this also feeds into what I think is very important in the sense of being an inspiration by the fact that there is still inequities or inequality in society. When you're at a certain leadership position, just by nature of being there, that's an inspiration to the next generation and others in similar positions. But also, I think it's important to use that as an opportunity to bring up other women and bring in a new way of thinking that looks at the treatment of men and women as equals. And then finally, something that I think is very important, and I often think that it's not discussed as much, is the ability to be authentic. I think that one of the most important things about leadership and inspiring others and motivating others to work with you and for you and in support of you is to be authentic in who you are and to bring that with you as you're in leadership roles. So that's one thing I've seen as a characteristic across some of the most successful businesses and women entrepreneurs that we've supported. And it's something that I would encourage for all women and men that are listening in or participating today. And then finally, I just want to emphasize again the importance of all of us individually, no matter what level or position we're in, to be a catalyst for change and realize that we can make the difference in this world. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dia. Of course, I think to be catalyst of change is something that the world actually needs all of us to do for us to make these, come out of these stereotypes and bring the change that we want the society to be in. Thank you, Dia. Talking about stereotypes, Purnima, agriculture is one sector which is considered to be a male-dominated sector, and you're the CEO of one of the largest global food companies from India. What, in your opinion, have been the critical success factors and what have been your learnings?
Yeah, so interestingly, Prachi, like you said in my introduction, I've worked in two sectors as a professional, railways and agriculture, right? Railways is one sector where even today, you don't find a women officer in the civil engineering department, and you would barely find a woman in the corridor if you were to walk into any railway office, right? So I have worked in that kind of a setup. And I have, relate to you, Vaidhehi, quite a bit. I have traveled to God-forsaken places. We used to do health assessment of bridges, right? So we would go into places which would be middle of nowhere, right? And work with JENs and AENs, and I could do it, right? Now, stereotype, yes. Breaking that stereotype, I made my effort. Similarly, in agriculture, we've talked about women largely being either laborers or cultivators, but in the position of decision making, in the position of influence, are they enough in number? And that's what this journey has been about. And if I were to just summarize the years that have gone by, I would say it's been it's a culmination of 4 C's and a P, the way I put it, right? The first one is around clarity of purpose. One needs to be very sure about what is the goal, what is the objective, what are my priorities in life, right? So that is the first one. The second is commitment. Once you decide that this is what I want to go after, you need to be committed. You can't be saying, oh, today, this is what is more important. And tomorrow you have to strike that balance, but commitment to the purpose is absolutely critical. The third thing is competence. And to me, that is absolutely core and central and non-compromisable. If women is competent, if you're competent to do and take on that responsibility, trust me, there are no barriers. The barriers are only in your mind. Then there are absolutely no barriers. Yes, society has perceptions, but those perceptions could be broken. You can easily break through those if you are competent, right? And with competence, the last C is confidence. And that was what sails you through in your journey as a woman leader. So for me, these are 4 very, very important C's. And finally, it's about passion. If you're passionate about what you want to do and you have these 4 C's, you can go and conquer the world. I don't see any reason. And that's really been my learning, Prachi, of these, 20 odd years of working in two sectors, which have been so male dominated, or, if you were to use the word stereotype, that's where it's been.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. I think when you said competence, it actually answers a lot of stereotypes that roam around in the industry as such, where women have never said, give us something just because, we're asking or we are we. If we have the confidence and the competence to do something is when, women actually go forward from where we are today. Fantastic. So moving on then, guys. Dhara, uh, next question to you actually. As part of SIDBI, which is a government setup, if you could share your experience of being a part of such a system, and are there any specific advantages or challenges that you could share with us as an experience?
Sure. So it's been a decade at SIDBI venture, and the experience has been quite unique compared to that of the Big Four where I worked previously. So firstly, the very and the approach is very different when you compare it with a private sector or an MNC, because we are more of development focused and not just profit driven. So we, of course, have a lot of emphasis on sustainable development goals, environmental, social, and governance frameworks, which obviously has women as focus. And my experience being part of Samriddhi Fund, which is 80% funded by UK government, we had an opportunity to learn and understand some of the best practices which were followed by the UK government when it comes to gender equality and equal rights. And we sort of emphasized and saw to it that it percolates down to our all portfolio companies, where we encourage women participation and gender equality. In fact, our fund had consciously invested 50% of the corpus in microfinance institutions, simply because 90% of those beneficiaries are women, and that would really be empowering rural women in true sense.
Yes.
The second very big difference that I see is we ourselves being a government undertaking, we take law not just in the spirit, not just in letter, but also in spirit. So we have a zero tolerance for sexual harassment, 100% compliance of company to women directors. And we very warmly encourage women employees to take maximum leaves as per the Maternity Benefit Act. So there is a lot of support, coming from the government, and it's been growing over the years. Lastly, I would just like to add that my observation is that though the number of women employees have been far lesser compared to men in public sectors or in government, that's to men. And that's because I believe that government institutes, offer some unique advantages to our ever multitasking women, which could be in form of secure jobs, better work-life balance, or stability at work. And it's always been a very encouraging thing, and in a lot of sectors we see that government has reservations for women, which is very supportive and forthcoming. However, because government institutes work in a typical framework, they lack the flexibility that today a lot of MNCs give women, which is in form of flexi work hours, work from home for moms, part-time options, and daycare and crèches at offices. So I think that should be a lot more encouraged across.
Okay, I think Dhara got dropped off. No, she said, Dhara, can you hear me? Are you with us? Sorry, Dhara, we lost the last sentence, probably, I think, got dropped off. You were talking of how MNCs
Yeah, so the MNCs give a lot more flexi work options, work from home, part-time options, which ideally in today's time, government should ideally encourage and adopt.
Yeah, absolutely. True. Actually, a lot of policies that were women-centric were started from the government systems, but it's been now that MNCs have actually got some work-life balance kind of initiatives, which probably government systems could also adopt. But a lot of women-centric policies originated, especially the maternity and time off policies for women that actually started from a government system in India. Great. So Divya, coming to you now, and I would like to throw some light, as a woman leader on your experience, if you could throw some light, and what would you attribute your success to?
Sure. Thanks for having me here, Prachi. So I've had a great journey of around 10 years as a woman in the corporate world. I started as a meek, submissive management trainee in some of the big banks for the first half decade. Next half decade, I was in, of course, the venture capital world. In this decade, being a woman, I experienced unique challenges. But in my experience, I classify these challenges as first into internal challenges which are within me, and then external challenges. And this 10-year has been a great journey of self-discovery for me, where I converted from this naive person trying to fit in into a masculine world to who I am right now. And I want to talk about this self-discovery and my learnings as a woman leader and what kind of leader I am, because obviously my leadership qualities won't resonate with me, leadership qualities. And yeah, so the learnings that made me who I am, there are some 3-4 core learnings that I had, which I implement every day and share. And I would like to share it with people here, and I hope it helps someone. I think the first learning that I had was women don't speak up. I don't speak up as much. And the reason I felt this is there is because in innate self-doubt and lack of self-confidence, because of probably our nurturing, etc. It's the way we are. So I realized that my goal for perfectionism was so high that it led to a lot of self-doubt, due to which I didn't speak much. So first change that I brought in myself is I'm going to speak up. Even if I'm uncomfortable, I'll do it. I'll tell people I'm uncomfortable in saying this, but I'm still going to do it. So what first learning was speak up.
Good point. Yeah.
Second learning that I had, or maybe unlearning, I should call these things unlearning. Second unlearning that I had was I don't have to please. Again, growing up, I realized we are trained to please. You have to be likable. So I'm not saying that you have to be rude to others, but to discover that I'm here to do my job and be myself. I'm not here to please others was another discovery that I had. And yeah, that's my suggestion to everyone. Be yourself. Don't change to make others happy. Don't be rude, but yeah, be yourself. The third learning that I had was know your worth. Again, I realized that in my head, and I realized this after talking to a lot of women also, that we don't see ourselves first. I mean, others would see us when we see ourselves as worthy of success, worthy of growth, worthy of everything in the world. We don't see ourselves as that first. So for me, another learning was that I need to know that I am worth XYZ, and then speak up and get my worth and fight for my worth if that's needed. So that was another learning. Fourth and the last one I want to share is that have a strong support system of strong women around you, so that if there's something to talk about, something that's not making sense to you, some challenge or roadblock which is again women centric, which you're not able to cross, have a nurturing group of women around you to talk about it. For me, I think women are great cheerleaders, so we might want to tap into this network to get some learnings from them, cheering from them, nurturing from them. So yeah, and then the world for some reason sees that two women can never be friends. I don't know. I have some great friends. So yeah, tap into that ecosystem, that nurturing space that other strong women provide to you. If there are any problems, speak up with them. So these are the 4 or 5 learnings which I had in my journey, which transformed me into who I am right now. So that's my journey for 10 years.
Fantastic. They were very, very well put. I think your first and you had me there was speak up, I have a daughter, and first thing that I have actually taught her is, just speak up. Anything that's bothering you, rather than thinking over it and not able to figure out, it's important to speak up. And and that's something that women all across ages and geography should actually be inculcating within themselves. And of course, other learnings were very helpful. Thank you, Divya. Moving on to the next question, actually, I would want to put this question across to Dia and Dhara both. The cultural differences could also help us in this, but maybe we could take your replies one after the other. Maybe Dia could start with. What did you dream of becoming when you were younger, and how do you think your dreams and beliefs helped you to achieve what you wanted to? Dia, if we could start with you on this one.
Sure. First of all, I love this question because it made me think back to when I was a child and kind of reflect on that. And it's funny because I think a lot of the things that influenced me or inspired me as a child are still with me today. So when I was younger, I dreamed of becoming a doctor. I was really interested in the medical profession, but I had a strong entrepreneurial streak. So I was always selling things in the house, selling books. One time my sister and I got in trouble for selling my dad's work papers and his notes. So it's really funny. And as I think about that and where I work now in impact investment, it's really influenced where I am today. The entrepreneurial streak has stayed with me, but now working as an investor and investing in companies. And I like to think the desire to be a doctor has also influenced me in the focus in impact investing. I have a strong desire to help and to make the world a better place and to support others. And I believe that desire to help comes from that early influence or wanting to help people in the medical profession. So thank you for that question.
Awesome. Thanks, Dia. Dhara, if I can shoot the same question to you.
Sure. So I think I'll first start by saying that little girls with dreams eventually become women with vision. And I come from a business family, so trade and finance always fascinated me as a child. So therefore, I took to studying chartered accountancy, and here I am, been a decade working in the private equity VC space, and privileged to be on board of 11 companies. If not doing great, but doing at least a reasonable job. And as a child, I was very moved by women-related issues. So when I had an opportunity to study law, I made it a point to, specialize in subjects like women and law, women, child, and law. And I think that really helps me today, when I am an active member of the internal complaints committee at my organization. So I definitely believe that your childhood or your dreams and your beliefs do somewhere guide you to your future. And I just like to end answering this question by sort of just relating it to something a little different but interesting, and this is in terms of my belief. I remember as a child, I was a lot into, reading mythological stories, and they had a real deep impact on my mind. And I was so influenced by the stories of Goddess Durga and Goddess Lakshmi and Goddess Saraswati. And I thought they all do such different things. They are so different. So they're all three different goddesses. However, obviously, as we grow a little older, we realize that, it's not that they are different, but in fact, they all come together as one. And that is the Adi Shakti. And it is this very same Adi Shakti which simply takes different forms to accomplish different goals. So if we, contemplate deeper on this all, we realize that the very universe or the Adi Shakti itself is feminine. And therefore, it reaffirms my belief that God has truly empowered women far more, and very uniquely with all the virtues. And I think all modern day women needs to do today is use this Shakti, to embody herself as a goddess Durga to conquer more the internal demons like self-doubt, lack of confidence, low self-esteem, and be a Mahalakshmi in true sense by having her financial independence and master knowledge and wisdom like goddess Saraswati, because I think a woman has it all.
Fantastic. Very well said and ended there, Dhara. Women have it all in them. Next question, if I can pose to Vaidhehi here. Vaidhehi, according to a recent survey on LinkedIn, 55% women drop out of junior and mid-level in corporates. Reason could be many, could be social stigma, education, or social conventions, education, etc. But what would your advice be to all the women who are listening on this webinar? And how would you tell them to keep going in their pursuit of success?
Get your husbands to do childcare.
Good point.
I do believe a lot of the next level of career progression for women gets stopped because there is this natural view that childcare becomes the woman's responsibility, right? And I don't speak out of experience, I speak out of seeing this in other people.
Absolutely.
I think that is potentially 60-70% of the reason. Everything else comes after, right? And now why women do childcare has different reasons, right? There's social conditioning from family and so on. There is a fundamental view that women have to be the primary caregiver for a child, which I don't see why, right? Like beyond the first year, it really doesn't matter who it is. I think there is also a bit of a understanding from the point of view of the workplace. I think this is where I think the workplace comes into picture, right? And if you're a parent, you're equally responsible for the child. So gender aside, you're obviously given a view on how you incorporate childcare into work. So when you do that, the men at work, when it's like this, right? When men at work, when your male colleagues at work contribute to childcare, it becomes easy for the female colleagues to do so. So I actually would say this is a part where in some ways even men have to contribute a lot more. And obviously there is a familial social stigma around, there is a fundamental understanding that it's always, so if the child is maybe, not picked up from school or whatever, right? Like the first question is never going to come to the father, it's going to come to the mother. And I've never understood why. I mean, we all understand why, it's social conditioning, but I would actually say that's the thing to solve for.
Sure, got it. Thank you, Vaidhehi. Actually, to be honest, you did put it across straight and blunt, but that's actually one of the factors. In fact, the same survey that I was referring to, and within the social convention that survey was referring to, women dropping out after their childbirth has the maximum percentage of votes. It had about 82% of women dropping out after, out of the women who dropped out, 82% dropped out after their first child. And that's precisely one of the reasons why it happens, and you've actually hit the nail right. Moving on then, I have next question, and if Divya you could answer this for us. Pretty simple and straight, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure you've got a very, very interesting answer for this for me. Is there a woman leader that inspires you, and why?
There's so many. I have 5 right here sitting next to me. So many women have inspired me throughout my life through their life stories. I think any woman who's gone through crisis or shattered some kind of glass ceiling to be where they are deserve a lot of applause for that. But for me to be really inspired, I mean, there's this woman leader whose quotes and speeches have really inspired me to think, to grow, to really question what's around me and develop my mindset around various aspects of life. I don't know if you've heard of her, Chinamanda Adichie. She's a Nigerian author. So those who've not heard of her, just type her name and type quotes against it. And she said some wonderful things that will really make you question. As I think Vaidhehi in her initial answer mentioned something on stereotypes. We are grappling with a lot of stereotypes. Now, the problem here is not just that there are recognized stereotypes that have to be addressed. There are a lot of unconscious stereotypes which even we absorb in ourselves, and we do it every day. The idea is to question and challenge everything. And I think her words and her writings have helped me challenge those stereotypes. I think I'm going to give one of her quotes here, which actually which actually made some difference on the way I think. So she once said, teach her that if you criticize X in women, but do not criticize the same thing, X, in men, then you do not have the problem with X. You have problem with women. So if you are saying somebody, a woman, that she cannot do something because she's a woman, the problem uh, is not that problem. The problem is the way we are thinking. So yeah, she said a lot of such interesting things. Another quote that I like, that I've actually used in my previous answer, is that it's not your job to be likable to get married. It's your job to be yourself. Someone will like you anyway. So these are these small little things that you said, which really inspired me. Look her up if you're interested in feminism and how to think about these matters.
Fantastic. Sure. Thanks, Divya. Thank you. Purnima, we have aspiring women leaders with us in audience today, and some people from within the organizations as well. What would be your one message to them within lines of "Believe It to Achieve It" that our webinar is titled today?
So Prachi, I would actually like to narrate a story. And we've had Divya talk about inspiration, and we've had Divya talk about inspiration. So here I am with a story, and this goes back to 1980. And there is this lady who is 50-year-old with 6 children, 14 grandchildren. Moved from a small town in Rajasthan called Sikar, and moved to the city called Calcutta. Right? So she moved from Sikar to Calcutta, and at the age of 50, decided to pursue medicine. So she decided that she wanted to. She had a childhood dream of becoming a doctor, and at the age of 50, when she moved to Calcutta, she thought, here is an opportunity for me to convert this dream of mine into reality. So at 50 years of age, this lady, decides to pursue medicine, and not through a correspondence course. She decides to enroll herself into a college. So sit with 20-year-old kids, 30-year younger her age, and way back in 1980, and pursue medicine. And this lady was my grandmother. So she would finish all her household chores, take a bus, because we financially were constrained at that point in time. So she would take a bus, go to the college, and for 5 years she pursued medicine. Kids would actually call her Nani Ma, because she was literally like their grandmother. So they would call her Nani Ma, and she did it, right? Because she had this belief in herself, and she never ever thought that there was something which was not possible. And that's been my inspiration. I've seen it right there in my family 40, 50 years back, right? And therefore today, when the entire context has changed, when the society is changing, there is no reason for women to be doubting, to be questioning whether this can be done, cannot be done. And therefore, she's been my inspiration. And Dia, you rightly said, we have to go out and figure out our inspiration, go after our dreams, our passion, and conquer the world. I think, there's nothing women cannot do. There is nothing that stops women. It's all in our own mind. There are perception issues, there are societal barriers, but break it. It's all in our mind. We can do it.
Fantastic. That was actually awesome, Purnima, because we these days talk of the change happening today, and things are changing now. But right in the 80s, if someone could pull that through, women can do anything and at any given point in time, and we don't have to wait for our time to arrive per se. Great, awesome. Thanks, Purnima. So with that, we basically come to the end of the panel discussion, guys. And I would now open the floor. If anyone in the audience has any questions for our panel, we are happy to take it over the next 5 minutes in case we have any. And if there are more, we could take. But it's the floor is open for any questions that may come up. If someone wants to write in a question, could do it in the Q&A box, or just raise a hand and I'll be happy to unmute you there. So there's one question that's come to me on our internal messaging system, which is Flock. The question's actually for Dia. And the question basically is, Dia, that, and I think this is also from the fact that, you're sitting in different geography altogether. Do you see the kind of stereotypes that we find in India? Do you also see those very similar ones, say, for example, in the agriculture sector that we see in India? Are the stereotypes similar, or do you see women in the US not having these very common Indian stereotypes that we come across? So I'm not sure what they mean by very common Indian stereotypes, but if you can take that as a generic question, Dia, for us.
I think, yes, we see a lot of the same kind of stereotypes and barriers in different sectors. And definitely agriculture, you look at engineering, you look at some of the transportation sectors, you see the same, but also on the, I want to show both sides of the story, but also on the positive side, you can also see some of the change as well. I think for us in the United States, it was a watershed moment after the election this year when we have the first female Vice President Kamala Harris. So you see a lot of these barriers being crushed and being broken. And I think our role as women and men as well is to continue to break those barriers and support a positive change. And that's something we can all do together globally.
Great. I have one more here for Divya. Divya, you spoke about a couple of changes and unlearning that you've done. What prompted you to do these unlearnings? How is it that these were the ones that you picked out, or did you see yourself struggling somewhere and we kind of said, okay, this is something that, how did you figure out these were the ones?
There were lots of lessons. I've just shared 4. So it's not just these 4. No, I, as I think Purnima also said that at a point I realized everything is in our head. So what we can do, what we can achieve is limited by us only. There are, of course, external limitations. I'm not denying that. But at the end of the day, knowing who you are, knowing your strength, I think is the first step. So instead of looking outside and criticizing the whole world that, hey, I'm not being treated fairly, this is happening, that is happening, I thought, let me look inside and do the best out of it. So yeah, this was a, how do I change myself? How do I view the world differently? I can't change the world, but I can change myself. And that kind of inspired me into, okay, what do I change myself? Let me take more risks. Let me talk more. Let me speak up more. Okay, what if somebody doesn't like me because I have different views? That's okay, because then I'm being more me. And it was a lot of trial and error thing for me as well. I'll try something new, something would work, something would not work. I'll end up people having. So I also realized when I disagreed with people, they respected me more. So I was too scared of disagreeing first in the initial years, but the more I disagreed, the more I felt respected. So a lot of things came out of trial and error. And at the end of the day, I realized most of my limitations were in my head.
Right.
90% was my head, 10% was probably outside. So that's how I came to these learnings on, and I keep on trying all these things. Let me try this. Let me do this.
Right. Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Divya. I'll take one more question in the benefit of time, and that question is for Vaidhehi. Vaidhehi, the question that someone's trying to put across to you is that a lot of times we say that women need to be strong, but there are times when women are actually quite strong and reverse to it, get a comment like you are too strong for a particular role or a particular job. Have you faced anything like this, and if at all, how do we as women kind of uh, get break this barrier and get away from this particular comment?
So here's the thing, right? Again, the gender movement has gone through multiple phases, right? As Dia said, there's been multiple stages. The first one in the US was the right to vote, and we didn't have to go through it. We had the right to vote, right? And then there was around being able to work first. In India, that was, I remember when my grandmother used to work in the RBI, she actually spent a lot of time getting ladies' compartment in trains because women could go to work. So first thing was even going to work. Then there was the whole thing around equal pay. And then now it's become around gender sensitivity, etc. Right? And what we're seeing emerge is the sense of women leadership, right? And I know you talked about strength, and I'm talking about leadership because I do believe they're intricately related. I think you can be a leader as a woman. You don't need to copy a male leadership style. I think what has happened throughout is always that there has been an advocacy for a woman to be a leader in a way the man is, right? You have your, like, there are sensitivities and advantages that women bring to the table. That is a completely different style of leadership, and that is completely acceptable. In fact, in a lot of places tends to be more effective. And that includes a few things, right? One is, I think, and I've seen this, right? Obviously, there are exceptions to the rule, etc. Women don't credit hog, right? Women are able to tell that this person did this person did this, versus saying, hey, boss, I'm responsible for everything, which creates for a better collaborative environment. Two is, women are not fundamentally trying to be competitive and exaggerate what they're trying to do. This is sort of a flip side to what Divya said, right? I keep thinking I'm wrong. It's about actually saying that women don't exaggerate. And because they don't exaggerate, the honesty in the conversation is more. It is also a disadvantage because in a situation where men exaggerate and women don't, women come across as less confident.
Yeah.
But don't we should stay true to who we are, right? And I think the third, and I believe this is very, very, very important, right, is there is a clinical approach to the workplace, right? You think about it as if, be professional, sure, but you know what, it's my job, I'm emotional about it. Don't ever let anybody tell you don't be emotional because you're a woman. That's completely bull. Because you know what, truth is, if you really like your job, if you're really passionate about your job, you're going to be emotional, and that's okay, and that should be okay. There has to be a psychological safe space for everybody. And by the way, this is not just about women, by the way, right? I think when you create a safe space, it becomes easy for men to express their emotions towards their work as well. End of the day, the whole workplace becomes productive. So we have 70% women in our office, by the way. We're probably one of the very few funds that has that kind of uh, org setup, right? So we are a team of 15 people with like 6 guys, right? So it's important to have that to acknowledge that there is an emotional component to work, and it is not just clinical. It is not just putting a professional doesn't mean clinical, and professional doesn't mean lacking in emotion. And having women in leadership positions allows for the psychological safe space, not just for women, by the way, but for men too. So those, I think, there are fundamental advantages to women leadership, and there is no need to walk in the shoes of men to be a woman leader. So think about strength the way it appeals to you, not the way it's been taught in B schools for the last few decades.
Thank you, Vaidhehi. Yeah, very well put, these points. In fact, sorry, I was about to wrap this up, but I have one question, Purnima, and this seems to be from someone outside INI, so I'll quickly take it up. My question is to Purnima: if you were in charge, what would you do to make women empowerment a better place to work?
A better place to work for women.
Yeah, I suppose that's what they mean. A little bit of typo, but yeah, that's largely what they mean.
Yeah, so the focus at INI is exactly about making INI a great place to work for all its women employees, irrespective of their position within the organization. So whether it's a labor, a supervisor, a manager working in a remote place in India, to somebody sitting in the HO here in Mumbai, the idea is to make it an absolutely safe and equitable place as far as employment is concerned. So different initiatives that we take at different levels, for somebody at a remote location, safety is of paramount importance, right? So we have to ensure that the way they're traveling, their work hours is aligned with the requirements that women in that area have. So so for example, in a pack house, we ensure that our work hours are aligned such that women can travel back and forth, because the pack house is about 30 minutes from the nearest large town, I would say. So those are the kind of things, various initiatives that we take, but just one example to highlight how we approach women inclusion and empowerment and a safe working environment across different locations.
Great. Thank you, Purnima. So wrapping up now this panel discussion at least and the question answer segment. But before we wrap up this session altogether, if I could request Purnima to please launch the INA's new initiative win for us, please.
So yes, thank you all for being a part of this panel today. Dia, Vaidhehi, Dhara, Divya, an absolute pleasure hearing all of you speak. The formal word of thanks would anyways come from Prachi, but before I move on to a formal announcement, I thought I'll take this opportunity to thank you all personally on behalf of INI as well. So yes, INI, as you all know, has been at the forefront of bringing in gender equality in the horticulture/agriculture sector in India. We are extremely proud of all the women associated with INI, either as a farmer, a supervisor, a manager, or as a member of the board. At INI, we create opportunities, but it is the passion, commitment, and competence of all these women which has made them successful. We are very happy and delighted to announce the launch of our WIN series, which is Women at INI. This will celebrate the wonderful women and their journey at INI. I hope that these stories also serve as an inspiration to many other men and women who still doubt the importance, contribution, and capabilities of women. So let's move onwards towards an equitable society. Let's all win.
INI Farms, a horticultural firm, led by the vision of a woman entrepreneur, is constantly working to make agricultural sector enabling for women and proceeding towards gender neutrality. To achieve this, we personally aspire to provide opportunities and promote leadership of women at all levels of the value chain. We feel proud to share that the women of INI are the magnificent leaders who are creating impact, big and small, inspired by this year's International Women's Day, Women in Leadership. We start with a short talk series WIN, Women at INI, aim towards recognizing and appreciating our leaders from every stratum. Leadership cannot be achieved through money or power. It arises from the spirit within. This talk series showcases that spirit of leadership among the fierce women of INI. We commence this inspirational series with the one of the earliest team member of Team INI, Neha Sharma. Her association with INI has grown her as a professional and an individual.
As a strong, independent woman, what's your take on empowerment? I'm the first working woman from my family. When I started, I was shy and felt really uncomfortable while interacting with others. But today, I'm extrovert, more confident and proactive towards my life, and it all thanks to I&I. Working here helped me to develop my skill and myself. And today I can say that is empowerment.
Challenges you had during your journey as a woman professional, and how did you overcome them?
Some challenges are the way they are ingrained in our mind. For example, when I was in admin, I have a feeling that man will not like to take orders from women, but it was only my internal fear. There were challenges and it will be more, but all it takes to overcome those challenges are two steps. First, in mind, when you decide to overcome them. Second, in action, when you take step towards overcoming them.
Those were some really insightful points, and we thank you, Naya, for sharing your views with us. We will continue this series with more such experiences.
Sorry, apologies. So this was Win for all of you guys, a talk series where women at I&I would speak about their journeys, challenges, and learnings. With this, we come to the end of this webinar, celebrating women in leadership, believe it to achieve it. And guys, we've had 5 very strong women talking about their journeys, talking about their challenges, talking about how they've achieved where and reached where they've reached today. And I think some very important points came out of the whole session, right from things like having self-confidence, not doubting yourself, speaking up, and that's something that I would take away. I would rather request everyone to take away, to speak up. That's foremost and first step to women empowerment in any society for that matter. My sincere thanks to all the panelists, Dia, Dhara, Vaidhehi, Divya, and Purnima, for being part of this very, very enlightening and enriching session. I would also like to thank everyone in the audience who's joined us within I&I and outside partners, and marking this I&I celebration for International Women's Day today. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining in. Bye.
Thank you.